welcome. We are so glad to have you with us again today. This is the final episode of season 1 of the Life with Five podcast. So exciting. And in today's episode, we're getting into part 2 of our series discussing learning how to speak our child's language. Last week, we talked about some of the different love languages from that you can find in Dr. Gary Chapman's book, The 5 Love Languages. And in today's episode, we're going to dive more into that. But if you missed it, make sure you go back. We talked about words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, acts of service, and gifts. Somebody just loves physical touch. In the episode, we shared how to identify each love language in your kids and how understanding it could help you better communicate with them. And now that we've identified their love languages, we must also care enough to learn to speak their language.
Yeah, knowing your kid's love language is a great start, but it is just that. It's just a start, right? Now the heavy lifting comes in, especially if you have different love languages at play. So in our case, we've had like 22 kids. I don't honestly even know how many kids we have anymore. There's just kids everywhere. I'm like, do you come home with us? Whatever, it doesn't matter. Like we just change them in and out.
Yep. Anyone who says mom, I answer.
So we have to learn all the languages, right? Mm-hmm. And it really is a good thing for all of us to be able to do that. And we've also had to realize that each child has also a different temperament and approach. So some kids are going to be more intense, a la me. Others are going to be more soft-spoken, like Carol, all right, this beautiful woman over here. Or you may have a child who's extremely extroverted, so you know everything they're thinking because their emotions are worn on their sleeve and they're always constantly talking about how they feel. Or you might have a child who's introverted and you might be wondering what's going on. And so you're going to have to go and talk to them, be a little bit more patient with them and calm when you're speaking with them. But maybe you have a child, they're kind of in the middle. They're this thing called an ambivert that nobody seems to ever talk about. Do you know you don't have to be just an extrovert or introvert?
Most of us aren't.
Most people aren't. That's right. You can be an ambivert. And so you have some extroverted qualities and some introverted qualities. And so sometimes you might know what your kid's thinking, and other parts of their life, you might be like, I don't really know what's going on. And we have to kind of work all these dynamics into play as we're talking to them and learning how to speak to them.
Yeah, and as we know, if you've ever tried to learn a foreign language, learning to speak somebody else's language is really difficult.
Yes.
But it does show just how much you care for them when you take time to learn their language. And the same is true for your child. And when you take time to learn their love language, they feel incredibly special. And as they grow older, I believe that they learn to appreciate, to recognize the effort that you do put into speaking their language. And if you have a child whose love language is words of affirmation, this would mean that you take time to look for opportunities to encourage them with your words frequently.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to do. But on the other side of that, it also means that you need to be more calculated with the words of criticism because they might cut a little bit deeper. I didn't realize for a long time what I was doing with my words because I use words so often, and honestly, kind of growing up in like school, I would use them to like tear down people. I'm not proud of this, but it's kind of what I did because it'd get a laugh, right? Yeah. And so I wanted to be liked, wanted to get a laugh. And so I would use those words and wield them as a weapon to tear down people, criticize. And a lot of times, even today, I'm not necessarily criticizing. I might just be critiquing something. I'm awfully critical of everything. I have an opinion about everything.
Yes,
that's true. And I don't always realize how damaging that can be to people who don't use their words in the same way that I do, because words, honestly, they matter to me, but they're not like a huge deal. They're just like something that I use. So while we have kids that can take harsher criticism and we can be a little bit more open, honest, and upfront with them immediately, we also have kids who are wounded sometimes by something that I would consider, in my opinion, rather minuscule, not a big deal. But it's a big deal to them. And so we can say, hey, that's not a big deal. And it's great to kind of teach people, about like, hey, not everything we need to lose our mind over. That's fine. But we also need to be considerate and thoughtful towards them and think about their position and what they're feeling. Yeah. And I'm still working on this one. I do work hard to look for opportunities to encourage my kids on a daily basis. I know for both Carol and I, when we go to school, we pray for them. And so this is an opportunity to maybe just speak life into them. I'll just tell my kids for no reason. I'm proud of them because I want them to know that. Not because you did something really well. I'm just proud of you because you're you and you're ours and we love you. I've really over the years trying to take the opportunity to encourage like their character, not just their competency. So not just their accomplishments, but the effort that they're putting into things. I know it's something we've worked on and talked about. One thing with my kids, another thing I should say, is that with words of affirmation, I just want to tell them that I love them. Growing up, that is not something my dad hardly ever told me. So the male voices in my life didn't really say, hey, the words I love you. And I just want them to always know it's okay to say those words and that they feel loved. Now, it's important I back that up with my actions. I can't just tell them that. But I want to be able to do this and say it every single day so they always know where I stand. And then the last thing I would say, if you just struggle with words of affirmation, maybe this is not your cup of tea, not your deal, maybe try writing down what you feel. Just putting a pen to paper and saying, hey, I love you, I'm proud of you, and here's why. And I think you might be surprised how long they hold on to that letter.
Yeah, that's really good. Now, for those kids who value quality time, this can be one of those things that seems really easy. It's not hard to figure out. I just need to spend time with my kid, but it can be a lot harder to do. As parents, it can feel overwhelming with the demands of life, with other children, with your job, all those things that you have to do. But remember, aside from God and your spouse, your kids really are your highest and greatest calling. So this means that you might have to reprioritize some other parts of your life to make time for your kids. And while that might not be easy, it's really going to be felt and appreciated by your child. It can be as simple as taking a day to get away from everything together, maybe have something fun, relax, do something that they like to do.
Yes.
Now, our kids, we recently got a house with a pool, and our girls have been begging me to get in this pool.
Begging.
Now, it's April, so it's starting to get warmer
it's in
in
the
Phoenix.
high 90s here. It's snowing in Portland where we're from.
So weird, right?
That's crazy.
Yeah, so it's pretty hot here, but our pool isn't heated, and so it takes a few weeks of 90s for the water to kind of warm up. So it's a little cold for me, but they've been in it like crazy, begging me to go in. So the other day I finally did it, and I wasn't head in swimming, but most of my body was in the water, and we had fun. They gave me a hard time for not getting all the way in, but it was fine. We had a good time. But doing something that they enjoy is really important.
You're such a good person.
I know.
Thanks for taking one for the team.
You're so welcome. But it might mean putting our devices away and just snuggling up with them on the couch, watching a movie, even though there's a million other things that need to be done. It's showing up to their games, to their plays, to their events at school. It's literally choosing them over whatever and whoever else is vying for our attention, and being present in the moments that we have with them. It's giving them our best by showing them that we're present and that we really care about them in the moment.
Yeah. And the truth is, as we look back upon our lives, we're going to see that there's a lot of things they could have been done at any time, right?
Yeah.
And they really weren't that big of a deal or that important in the grand scheme of life.
Right.
But our kids, man, they absolutely are. And we don't want to miss those moments. I know there are moments I look back upon with a little bit of regret, but all you can do is really move forward now. And so I want to encourage you with that. The next one we're going to talk about, though, is physical touch. And I think about when I grew up, my dad was not a big hugger. He'd give me a hug from time to time or something like that. My mom, too, she went through some abuse when she was a child. And so I think there was always some issues that were going there. And I'd say early on as a kid, they were pretty affectionate, not super or anything. But as I got older, I really didn't receive a whole lot of affection from them. And I personally always been a hugger, though, right? I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's my response to not having it in my life when I was younger or whatever, but it is important to me. If you know me, I don't know what, I just have a sorry. I'm sorry if I invade your personal space, all right? Just apologize in advance. But however, not everybody is high on physical touch. And so what you want to do is, if you're not, and you have a child who is, be careful not to rob your child of something that is their love language, that would make them feel loved and seen and cared for. If they come up and they want a hug and you're not a hugger, don't kind of awkwardly hug. Just embrace them and maybe even hold them tightly and do it for an extra beat or two, all right? Just let them know that you're there and you love them and you care about them. It might be uncomfortable, but that might also be exactly what they need. And so I make it a point to put my hand on my kid's head or their back, and the boys, just to kind of let them know, hey, dad's here from time to time. I'll give them a hug constantly. I'll give a kiss to the younger ones if they want that. Appropriate physical touch also sets the stage for them, by the way. as they get older. And for those who speak this love language and are going to seek it no matter what, it's absolutely vital for them to see it done in an appropriate way and in the appropriate setting. Otherwise, they may go seek it in the wrong environment, and we don't want that for our children either. So if you have a child who feels love through physical touch, maybe give them a good bear hug today and watch a big smile kind of flash upon their face.
Yeah, and as a parent of physical touch kids, I know it can be hard to determine like when does it become not appropriate, especially
Yes.
with kids of an opposite gender. And since our first three kids are boys, we've kind of gone through that. We have two that are teenagers, one that's a preteen. But I would say that I kind of take my cues from them. And as they've approached and gone through adolescence, it's really been a pretty natural shift for them. Like when they were younger and they would go in for a kiss on the mouth, I would let them kiss me. And then as they started to turn to my cheek, I let them turn to my cheek. Now we do have one that skipped the cheek altogether and is just like, don't touch me. But even with him, I know that we have an intrinsic human need for physical
Right.
touch, for connection and bonding. So I do still touch him from time to time, even give him a big hug once in a while.
Come on, you're his mom.
Absolutely. But I do use it more sparingly with him than I do with others who are more prone to physical touch. But
That's good.
as we move into acts of service, creativity and adventure can be key here for those kids. And many kids who have acts of service as their primary love language are also goal oriented and they enjoy working toward that end with you. So maybe that's a good opportunity to coach their team if they're involved in sports and they love doing that, or sitting down to play video games with them, even if you know they're going to slaughter you. Now, I'm kind of competitive, so I don't enjoy doing things that I know I'm bad at or that I'm going to lose at.
Listen, can we play like old school Nintendo? I will show you what's up.
Yeah, some Mario Brothers or Sonic the
Come
Hedgehog or
I
something
don't,
like
all
that.
these new games, I could school them on Madden for a long time. I haven't played them in a long time because I'm scared.
Yeah,
Don't let them
you
know.
should be. But as kids get older, they may move from simply adventuring with our kids to helping them with their agendas, the things that they are passionate about. Maybe starting a YouTube channel. We have some kids that really want to do that, and they really want to do like the fun part of it, not so much the work.
We do have one who edits for us, actually, so that's good.
Yes,
One out of five.
he does. Or maybe raising money to bring attention to a cause that they're really passionate about. That could be something you could do together. Though the language of acts of service, though we realize that the service part might not be fully developed initially. That might take some time. So again, pay attention to the purpose so you can tell the difference between whether your kid really just wants quality time with you or whether they want to work together toward a goal for acts of service.
Yeah. And the last one we want to get into here is we're going back to gifts. So this one is fairly straightforward. However, gifts is not just about what you can buy for your kids. And I think
Right.
this is really important to some people like, well, I got to buy my kid. I don't have money to buy my kids. You can be creative. My sister happens to have the love language of gifts. She's amazing at it. But she often didn't spend money on the gifts she would give me. But she would make me feel just so loved by the gifts she would give, even though I score a 0 on gifts. This is not an important thing to me. But it was really about the effort that I saw her put in and through all the amazing ideas she had throughout the years. Her thoughtfulness is really what made it so great. For someone who scored a 0, like I said, I was simply moved because I saw the care, I saw the time, I saw the effort that she put in for that gift to make it meaningful and really unique just to me. She would give gifts that are unique to every single person. I thought that was so cool. And we'll see that gifts may be tough if you have multiple kids, though.
Yeah.
Because I think we sometimes feel a pressure, parents, we're being honest, to do everything equally, right? Like we're going to spend an equal amount on this kid and this kid and this kid and this kid. Okay. Can we just tell you, if you have a child that really appreciates gifts and feels loved in that way more than your others do, we don't think it's actually wrong to display that love by giving them something that might be a little bit more or costly or more time consuming to come up with. And now you can have a conversation with your kids and tell them, hey, here's kind of what we're doing so they understand. And I'm not saying go like blow all your money on one kid and like, hey, you don't have the love language of gifts, so we're not getting you anything. Like, here's a candy bar, be happy, go over there and eat it, whatever. Like, we're not saying that at all. But I think of all the love languages, though, our kids excel in this one, speaking this one the best. And it's really been awesome to see over the years their thoughtfulness that they put into giving gifts to each other, the creativity they've had in giving gifts to us and to their siblings as well. And so I love seeing that as a father.
Yeah, and often those kids who do receive love through gifts, they don't care about the amount that you're spending either. It really is
Right.
more about the time and the effort that you put into it and the thoughtfulness for them. Well, with all of these languages, it might even be an opportunity to talk to your kids, share why you're learning how to speak their love language, why it's important to you. It can be a great way to clearly express to them that you really care about how they feel. Because while the golden rule is do unto others as you would want done to you, we really think the best way to love is to do unto others the way they would want to have done to them. And
Yeah.
this is a great way to
That's
go
true.
about parenting our children. And next, we need to care enough to learn their styles. We're not going to dive into each love language again for this point, but it is important to realize that even if you have two kids with the same love language, like physical touch, for example, it may mean different things to each child. Like we have one that really loves to wrestle.
Unfortunately, he is the biggest one.
He is big, and as he's gotten bigger, he likes to like grab me and pick me up. It's like he's saying, and it's not comfortable or enjoyable for me, but he loves to do it, so it's fine. And then we have others that just like to snuggle up with us on the couch and watch a movie. But don't just assume that you have it figured out once you know what their love language is, because there's a lot of nuance to each of the love languages as well.
Yeah, I when I think about that idea of nuance, I think about the fact that I took German class years ago because my grandma was German and she, spoke it fluently and she lived with us. And so I was like, I'm going to learn German. So I took 4 years of German class, by the way, in high school. Hair Brown, if you're out there watching, I'm sure he is. Um,
I'm sure.
I didn't remember anything. I'm sorry. I know how to count to 10. I can ask where the toilet is.
Those are important things.
Yeah, so, but I finally, it's probably on my second or third year, I mustered up enough courage to go, think I could talk to my grandma. And so I was like, I can have like a small conversation with her. So I went over and we started sitting down and we started having this conversation. I kind of tell she had like this weird look on her face, like, what's he saying? But she kind of picked up on what I was trying to say. And so she then fired back and she said what she was going to say in response. And I was like, deer in headlights, just blank stare. Like I don't know what just happened. I don't know what you're saying. Is that really even German? Like I don't know what's happening right now. And I was like, she said it a couple times. I was like, Grandma, you're gonna have to tell me in English because I don't understand it. So she told me, I was like, that's not how you say that. And she's like, yeah, I'm German. I know how to say it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I got this one right. And I was like, well, my teacher told me that we say it this way. And what I realized is that there were different like dialects almost in different parts of the country. And plus she lived there a long time ago. And so my teacher lived there, within like the last 10 years. And so the different time periods between the different areas, there was definitely some different dialects and different nuances there. And the same is true. Sometimes maybe, your love language is quality time, but you've experienced that in a different way. And so you're speaking a slightly different language. And if you don't get that nuance, sometimes it's just a little off. And so all your efforts aren't really going forth and making the impact that you want them to make.
Yeah. And we're not saying that you need to start using whatever cool words of the day are with your
That's
kids.
lit.
Oh
It's
my.
fire.
Yeah, sometimes I use their words and just to be ridiculous,
That's
but
great. I love it. I
and
just
other
love saying
times
it.
I'm like, what does that even mean?
Okay, come
I
on
don't
now.
know.
Wet? That was a word for what? Drip is okay, but wet? That's just dumb. Can we go back to like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Like that's cool, tubular, radical.
Yeah, gnarly.
Yeah. Oh, gnarly. I forgot about gnarly. Let's go back to Vanilla Ice era.
Keep watching for more language tips to connect with your kids. But we are saying that you at least need to try to understand the nuances to best connect
Yes.
with your kids. And a few more things we want to leave you with, some tips when it comes to speaking your child's love language. One, it's really important to teach them the other languages. Though we've talked primarily about speaking their language, it is also important for them to understand that love comes in lots of different forms. So they can both express love to their friends and family that have love languages that are different from theirs. But so also they can better appreciate when someone else is showing them love in a different way. And learning their unique love language shows your child that you care. But then teaching them to appreciate the diversity of other languages really helps them be prepared for healthier and more fulfilling relationships in the future.
Yeah. In fact, we just had the other day, we had one of our kids and I was like, hey, do you ever notice how you like share all the details of your day and you don't really hardly ever ask like about anybody else's day? So like I was like, why don't we work on that? And so he came home and he asked Carol, like, how was your day? And
Yeah.
like, what did you do? And he sat there and asked a few questions, which I know was probably awkward to him, but it's good to teach them that there's a world bigger than themselves, right?
Exactly.
So the second tip here is make a list and follow through. Be creative. Write down some things that you could do to express your love to your kids in a way that they'll feel loved, right? Speaking their language. If your love language is quality time, pick a place, or their love language is quality time, pick a place and go out with them and maybe take them out of the school in the middle of the day and they're like, oh my goodness, take them to lunch. Like, I can't believe you did that. Listen, you can only do that if their grades are good though. So I'm sorry a few of my, I'm just kidding. All the kids actually have great grades right now.
They do.
Thank
They're
the
doing
maker.
great.
But a big thing is that you start thinking simply about how they would feel loved and how they'd like to be spoken to and what their language is. Maybe even show them the list that you created and say, hey, what do you think about these things? Or maybe what would you add to this? Maybe even create the list together. You can say, hey, I want to work on this and I want to be better at this, and incorporate those things into your schedule over the next few weeks.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And tip number 3 is give yourself grace. I think as parents, we often feel like we fall short or we're failing at times. It's really easy to fall into that. Maybe you feel like you've missed the opportunity and that your kids are too old now. But if living life with Jesus has taught me anything, it's that his grace, it's never too late for God to redeem and to restore. So
Yeah.
don't let your anxiety, your worry compound and keep you stuck in this moment. Take action today and let the past go. Let those mistakes go so that you can move forward. God's grace is going to cover you. It's going to cover your kids. It is more than enough for you. Well, we want to thank you so much for joining us today as we wrap up season 1 of the Live with 5 podcast.
Let's
We
go.
did it. This is a 2-part series. So if you missed the first part, go back and listen to that and make sure you're putting these principles into practice. It really will help you connect on a deeper level with your kids.
Yeah, and we want to say to all you moms and dads, grandpas, grandmas, aunts, uncles, foster parents, anyone raising kids, we want to remind you that if you're listening or watching this podcast, it's because you care about your kids, and we commend you for that. Well done.
Yes.
We pray that these episodes have encouraged you in this first season, challenged you, and ultimately lead you to be closer to your spouse, to your kids, and tighter as a family. Of course, if you have anything to add to any of these conversations, we'd love to hear from you on Instagram. So hit us up at Life with 5 Podcast. And we'd love to, again, hear from you. If you're watching on YouTube, would you do us a favor? Leave us a comment. Let us know what you're thinking. Give us your input. Of course, hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe. Hit that bell to get notified of all future episodes. We want to say thank you again for watching this season. And we can't wait to see you back again soon.